Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am here today with Todd Patkin. He is an author, a keynote speaker, and a happiness coach. Thank you so much for joining me, Todd.
Amanda, I'm thrilled to be with you.
So, who would you say Todd is at the core?
Well, I've always been a really sensitive person, a very loving person. A lot of times that gets me in trouble. It can be, we know that your greatest asset is also your greatest flaw. So I believe in people. And because I believe so much, sometimes I've been taken advantage of and hurt. But I'd just say the number one word, two words is I'd say honest and loving.
And you say you've always been honest and loving?
Yes.
Can you take us down memory lane a little bit? Tell me about your upbringing, childhood, family dynamic.
Yeah, I was born in just south of Boston in Needham, Massachusetts. I am a middle child, which I'm very proud of. And I'm a Gemini, so I always say middle child and Gemini, TNT, baby. Meaning it's just, I love being both of those things because a Gemini, I think, makes you very sensitive, and a middle child does as well. So I grew up, I had an older brother, a younger sister in Needham, and I was quite good at sports. I was kind of on the outside of the in crowd, the popular crowd, but I was kind of on the outside of them, and I'd get frustrated a lot when there'd be parties that I wasn't invited to. Amanda, I was bullied a lot in school and picked on, and that really affected me. And I think it started me on the course of wanting to be a perfectionist, because I wanted to prove to the bullies that I could get better grades than them. And so I felt the need to get straight A's in high school, and that was very stressful for me. I also had trouble with homesickness. I went to a overnight camp a little younger than I probably should, and I had to come home. And all of this followed me to Tufts University. And people say in Massachusetts, if you can't get into Harvard, you go to Tufts. So Tufts was a very difficult school to get straight A's, but I managed to do it, but I made myself crazy doing it. I was homesick. I was still bullied there. I guess I was a target my entire life. The one thing that saved me is my dad could tell that I was having a really difficult time, and he said, why don't the two of us join a gym? And in my 12-week program, the first thing I say is exercise is the most important thing you can do if you're feeling down or unhappy, because it's the quickest way you can go from anxious and unhappy to feeling very powerful and a lot better. I left the university, and I was so blessed. I went into the family business, which was automobile parts. And as I said, I'm very sensitive, so my strength is people. And I was in charge of the stores. We had 18 stores at the time. When we sold the company, we had 62 stores. And that was my job, was to grow it. And I would hire people my age, young people who didn't know necessarily as much about parts, but really understood working hard. I gave them the chance to earn more money than they ever dreamed possible. And the competition, I say, was guys with motorcycles. They were guys who loved auto parts, but didn't really like people. So it was very easy for us to beat them in business. And we did. We were very successful. So that's a brief bringing you up to the age 38 or 40.
Now, did you know in high school that you wanted to go to Tufts, so you wanted to pursue that?
I actually didn't want to go to Tufts because my entire family went to Tufts. My dad, my brother, his family. I always wanted to be better than my brother. And so I wanted to go to UPenn, which was an Ivy League school. And I got waitlisted and rejected. And so I went to Tufts, not wanting to go to Tufts. I was so unhappy at Tufts the first 2 years that I transferred to a school in Montreal called McGill. And I went to McGill because I had a friend named David Adelman who went to McGill. And when I visited, really came away saying, you know what, Tufts, everybody wants to get A's. At McGill, everyone wants to play a sport, have a girlfriend, and get B's, which for me was great. So I went to McGill, and it was just a joy for me. I wound up coming back to Tufts and getting my degree from Tufts because after 3.5 years, 2 at Tufts and 1.5 at McGill, the way the credits went, I would have had to do a whole nother year at McGill, or I could just come back to Tufts and do 6 months, and I chose that.
Oh, that must have been a difficult decision too. You left Tufts and then you had the debate. Do you stay at McGill or do you go back to Tufts?
I'll tell you, the real difficult decision is when I decided to leave Tufts, I reapplied to UPenn, the dream school, and I got in. But I realized at that point, I'd kill myself if I went to UPenn and tried to get A's, because that was an Ivy League school. So that was even a step up from Tufts. So at that point, as much as I wanted to go there my whole life, I chose McGill over UPenn, which I know was a great choice for me. And it wasn't that difficult to go back to Tufts, because by then I was so tired of school, because I needed to get straight A's. And when you need to get straight A's, you burn out. So by being there for 3.5 years, needing to get straight A's and being so stressed, it was easy to say, let me just go home. I'll live at home. I'll do 6 months and I'll be done.
That's a great accomplishment, though, that you were able to get into UPenn even if you never went there.
Yeah, I think it was great.
Because it was your dream, whether you actually pursued it. It's not like you didn't get the opportunity.
Yeah. And I even say the greatest accomplishment of my life was graduating from college. And it's not that I wasn't smart enough. It's that I was so stressed out about being homesick and, needing such great grades. It was just a struggle every day.
Did anything help you with your homesickness?
Coming home. I came home every week, even though we paid for a dorm room. I'd usually be at the dorm room Tuesday and Wednesday and be home the rest of the week. My parents were fantastic. So even what happens when we're young affects us when we're old. So even when I have a big trip that I need to make, I go to Israel a lot. And let's say, Amanda, that I have to go to Israel for a week without my wife, I get sweaty palms the night before I go. That little kid being homesick comes back to me even at age 60.
Really?
That happens to us. We still have it. I have a friend who was bullied a lot, and she saw the bully the other day and she almost died. It came back to her like she was a little girl being bullied again. So these things don't go away. They stay with us.
That makes sense that they do. I'm curious. You seem like you have a great relationship with your parents. How is your relationship with your siblings?
My relationship with my brother wasn't very good. We were very competitive and we were very different. He was more of an introvert. We worked together. So he was the CEO of the company and I was the president. So I would go around and I jumped off tables when we had meetings like Tony Robbins to get everybody fired up and excited. I'd get down on my hands and knees and beg for sales. Come on. So I was very animated, really a rock star, in my opinion, when I did my public speaking. And he maybe was jealous of that, but a lot of times, and I swore a lot, that's just kind of the way that I am. And, when we had a great year, he'd say, all right, now let's pull you back a little less swearing, a little bit less crazy, but then would have a bad year and he'd say, go crazy again. So it was kind of crazy, the relationship we had. And my sister was always much closer with him. So I didn't have a good relationship with my siblings, I'd say, but I had the closest relationship with my mother growing up, and I still do. And my father and I have become very, very close in the later years.
I gotcha. And now, how was working and running the family business? Did you enjoy that?
The greatest experience in my life. I loved it. Loved every minute of it.
What was your favorite part about it?
My favorite part about it was hiring these young guys and teaching them how to love life and be good, not only be good at work, but be good husbands and fathers and mothers. See, I was a devotee of Tony Robbins. I don't know how much you know about Tony Robbins, but he was huge in the 90s and 2000s, and he teaches you how to believe in yourself and how you can do great things and how you can focus on being a happy person. And I would have a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who were unhappy, which is even today. You know, they were brought up, you'll always be like your parents, Amanda. Okay? So you won't be what your parents tell you to be, but you'll always be like them. So I had one guy, his name was Barry. Most people I could break. If they were negative, I could break them. And a lot of people felt it was almost like a cult, the way that at the beginning of my meetings would play loud music, "We Are the Champions," and would chant and would go crazy. But Barry, I couldn't break because he said my grandpa was negative, my dad was negative, I'm negative, that's just the way it's going to be. And you know how I broke him?
How?
I broke him because a son was born. And I said to him one day, "Barry, you've completely convinced me that you are like your parents. So your great grandpa was negative, your grandpa was negative, your father was negative, and now you're extremely negative. Do you really want your son to be that way?" And he started to cry. And he said, basically, "No, I don't. You know, help me out." So that was really a proud moment that I remember.
Wow.
Yeah. As much as all the business, we were very successful. We grew by 20% a year. When we sold the company, we were a $100 million company. You know, we went from 20 stores to 62 stores. We were very successful.
How long did you run that, approximately?
I was there for 18 years. And I got burnt out, just like I did with everything else. I put too much into it.
So you sold it, and what was your next step from selling it?
I felt like I really needed to stay busy because I was worried about having too much time in my hands and being depressed. So the very first thing I did, and it's very amazing that you asked me this today, I ran the Boston Marathon, which if anybody in the rest of the country doesn't know, today was the 130th running of the Boston Marathon. I did it when it was the 117th running, when I was 37, when I ran the Boston Marathon. Today I'm 60. So that's the first thing I did. I wanted to have something, a challenge. I wanted it to be healthy. I started running 1 mile, 2 miles, or up to 26 miles. The other thing I did is I wrote a book. I really wanted to share with people that we all make mistakes and we're all human. And so when we do stuff that you could say is dumb, you're not the only one. Because when you do stuff, whether you're young or old, you feel like you're the only one. So for example, when I was 18, 17, a beautiful girl, and I was terrible with women when I was young, beautiful girl invited me to her cotillion, which is like a prom. And the first thing that happened is I was wearing work boots. My father says it couldn't be, but whatever I was wearing on my feet, the minute she saw them, she gasped. She was so embarrassed. And then I took her to her cotillion, and the first thing I did to be, impressive is I pulled the chair out for her, and she sat on the floor. It was so embarrassing in front of all of her friends. And so this still bothers me to this day. I'm still bothered by that. And at the time, I felt like, what a loser, no one else has ever done that. Well, of course, thousands of people have pulled a chair out, but you feel like you're the only one. I was bullied by a girl my senior year. She ruined my year. And, at the time I thought, geez, what a loser. How could anybody be bullied by a girl? But I'm sure thousands of men have been bullied by a girl. So you feel like you're the only one. You go into a meeting with your fly down if you're a man. I'm sure Bill Clinton and Obama and Trump have all gone into a meeting with their fly down, but you think you're the only one. So I wrote a book about all of my life. I think of myself as lying on a bed like in high school when you dissected a frog. And I'm just letting people dissect my entire life. The plus is I've had the lowest lows and the greatest highs. So that was the purpose of the book. And that took me almost 3 years to write it. And then we got into the workbook, teaching people how to live a happier life. And then I started speaking and traveling and doing all of that.
How long ago was it that you wrote the book?
The book was published in 2012. The truth is, from 2016 to about 2 years ago, I wasn't doing anything with the happiness. I took some time off from the happiness. I was frustrated because I really felt like I wrote a great book. It won an award for the Jewish Book of the Year. But nobody went to Amazon. Nobody bought it. It wasn't in any of the bookstores, Barnes and Noble. The only time I'd sell it is if I gave a speech. And, it's a pain to bring all these books and make sure you're selling them and taking, $20 for every single book that you sell. So I got frustrated with it and I stopped. And I really went into charity. I was very successful in the business, so I had plenty of money. So I started giving it away. And then I decided to get back into the happiness and the speaking and the podcast interviews like we're doing today.
Now, I'm curious, did you always think you would write a book, some sort of book?
Never.
No.
I don't consider myself that smart to write a book.
But I know it was perfectionist, but you were getting A's.
I know, but I don't know what I would write about.
Okay. So when did you get the inkling or the idea, whatever you want to call it, that you thought you wanted to write a book?
At the age of 36, I was very successful at work, but I was burnt out and I had a complete nervous breakdown. I was suicidal for 3 days. I really wanted to kill myself. And the only way I got better was the right medication. So obviously I'm telling people on your podcast to go to a doctor. Don't take my advice. But if you break and you can't get out of bed and you want to kill yourself, I highly recommend medicine. Again, I'm not telling you to do it without speaking to a professional. So the meds got me better, but I said to myself, boy, you were riding so high. You've got more money than you ever dreamed. You've been so successful. You're happily married. You're a father, and you wanted to kill yourself. Something's broken. And you can share this example with people to try to help them avoid it. And then I asked myself, Amanda, what are the things that I should be doing habitually that could lead to a better life? See, what happens when you have a breakdown or you have cancer or you have a heart attack and you think you're going to die is that's the only time really that you say, screw it, I'm done with my life. I'm going to change. I'm going to live a different life. The next book I'm thinking of writing is how I can help people who don't have serious illnesses change when they want to. Because there's a lot of people working 70 hours a week and they're addicted to it. You get addicted to success. I love being told that I'm the first one at work and the last one to leave. I love getting the trophies. I love getting the raises. It's like when you're a little kid playing soccer and you score goals. You get addicted to that. How do you get off of that? I often say to people, think of your tombstone when you die. Would you rather it say Bill was the greatest worker at ABC company or Bill was a great dad and a great father? Now, 900 out of us, 999,000 are going to say, I'd much rather say I was a good husband and dad. But you never see your wife and you never see your kids. You're living at work the whole time. So I came up with the 12 things that I feel like you should do on a habitual basis to live a happier life. Some I was already doing, and a lot of them were new. And that's the reason I wrote the book, is to try to help people learn about the breakdown to the breakthrough, and that life isn't just about downs, someone always down or someone always up. I had the highest highs. I had things happen to me that are totally inexplicable. If you want me to go into it, I can.
So I'm curious if you don't mind sharing some of what you say is the inexplicable.
I knew Aerosmith from, I gave money to a rehab clinic that Steven Tyler was at. And they told me if I gave more that he'd come to my 40th birthday party, which he did. So I got to know him. And then I was allowed through his manager to come backstage to some of his concerts. I'm also very involved with Israel. So about 20 years ago, an Israeli soldier named Ehud Levi was taken by Hezbollah on the Lebanese border. And his wife was coming to America all the time, to the UN, and pleading, don't forget about my husband. I want to keep him in the front of everybody's mind. And what happened is I was asked to pay some money for her hotel so she could stay in New York. And then I told you I have a big heart. I said, you know what? This woman's dying. Every night she's upset and dying. Let me take you to an Aerosmith concert and introduce her to Steven Tyler. So I got in touch with her manager, and she said she'd love to go. Well, Amanda, a week before the show, the Israeli government calls me up from New York and says, where should we put the microphone, the stand? Where should we have the television cameras? And I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, she said that you're going to have Steven Tyler ask for her husband's release before the concert, and we want to have it on TV. And I said, this is crazy. This isn't anything I ever imagined. I'm just having her go for a good time and just see Steven Tyler. So I said, does she still want to go? Yes, I picked her up. And the whole way over, she said, we have to get Steven to ask for his release. And I said, fine, we'll do the best we can. So we went backstage, and her manager, John Slade, I told him I'm going to have her name was Ruti, go backstage and speak to Steven and ask him to do this. John said, if she does that, you're never coming back again. You're blacklisted. You'll never get back here again. So she was crying, and I said, listen, you got one chance at this. When you meet Steven, beg him, cry, do whatever you can, ask him to please mention whatever you want him to. So she begged Steven during Dream On, because that was her husband's favorite song. And Steven actually went in the middle of the concert. He stopped the concert and asked Hezbollah to release Houthi, which I just think is a really cool thing. So for me, that's one of my highlights in my life, because I was able to put that together. So that's a high for me.
Wow. And did anything happen to you from that situation?
Well, first of all, he had already been killed. We found out a year later, prior to even this concert. But nothing happened to me, no. I just felt great about it, that's all. For me, it was a special moment to get Steven Tyler to stop the concert during the song Dream On, which was this guy's favorite song, and ask for his release. I'm sure Steven didn't even know what Lebanon was or Israel. I mean, he's getting fired up for his performance. He's got everything going on, and it was amazing.
I'm curious, transitioning back a tad, when you had this breakdown, what were you doing for work? Were you at the company?
Oh, yeah, no, I was at the company. I was working, 70 hours a week. People were saying, if you continue to work this hard, you're going to have a breakdown. I wasn't listening to them. I was loving every single minute of it. And then what happened is a few things. My wife and I lost a pregnancy, and I fainted on the floor. And the doctor said that was actually when the breakdown started. And then what happened is I had become addicted to exercise. And as I told you, whenever we had company meetings, I would jump off tables and get crazy and get people fired up. And we decided to have a meeting in our headquarters on the warehouse, which is a cement floor. We decided to have it at the headquarters so the store managers could meet with the office managers. And I fractured both my feet. So I couldn't exercise. So I was depressed about losing the pregnancy. I couldn't exercise, which is like an antidepressant. And then I sunk down deeper and had that time when I was suicidal.
Now, you mentioned you were in bed, I think you said 3 days?
Yeah.
What gave you, I don't know if I want to say courage or the will to go to the doctor?
Well, I mean, I knew that I didn't want to really kill myself. And I felt so bad that, you just like, get me to a doctor, get me to someone who can help me. The first doctor was awful. He said that I'd never work again. And then I went to the right doctor. He said, you'll be fine. Just take these medications and I'll work with you and you'll be fine.
The first doctor told you you'd never work again?
Yeah, he was crazy. Terrible doctor.
Did that feel like defeating at all to you, or did you not buy it?
Oh my God, was it defeating? When you're in that sense of mind, when everything's bad, you're bad, the whole world is bad, and it says you're never going to work again. Oh my God, it was the worst thing in the world.
How long after did you go see the different doctor?
I think it took me another month to find the right doctor. And that whole time it was excruciatingly painful. I say I was in bed for 3 days and wanted to kill myself, but during that entire month, I probably was suicidal.
Was there anything that helped you?
Exercise kept me a little good. For the most part, it was only when I got on the medicine.
But I mean, in that in-between period, like that month long, like.
I was in terrible pain. Like if you got hit by a car for the first month or two, I mean, I was in terrible pain until I got on the medicine.
Did anything help you hang on, per se?
When we went away once and I actually took a knife and I, put it near my wrist, but I didn't actually do it. So if you said, is anything helped me? I guess maybe the fact that I had my son, I didn't want to kill myself because of him. Maybe I hung on because of him. But I think a lot of people talk about killing themselves and they really want to do it. But do they actually do it? 90% don't. It's more common than you think, people wanting to kill themselves.
I know it is. So then about a month later, you went to the different doctor and got on medication.
And within 3 weeks, I was like my old self. My chemistry in my brain went back to normal and I felt great. And that's when I said, I got to put together a workbook and share with people the things that I'm going to start doing in my life to live a happier life.
Wow. And now you said some of these things you were previously doing and some of them were new things.
Correct.
Do you mind giving us an example of one?
Well, I was always doing exercise. And I don't mind. I can go through all 12 if we have the time, but I was always exercising. And that's the first of my 12 things. Because as I said, exercise is the quickest way you can go from feeling terrible to feeling better. And the next thing is listening or reading inspirational material, which I was doing a lot of with Tony Robbins. Because what we want to do is for the first two things, we want to get people feeling stronger physically and emotionally. That's going to the gym, or you can even just walk around the house. I don't want you to go to the gym on day one and lift 100 pounds. We want to just have you go at your own pace. And then week 2 is listening to inspirational material. So you're in the right frame of mind to go through weeks 3 through 12, which are really difficult, weeks 3 through 12. Week 3 is learning how to be easier on yourself. Most people treat themselves worse than they treat their worst enemy. They say things like, I can't believe how fat I am. I can't believe how stupid I am. I can't believe what a bad dad I am, what a bad mother I am. We do this all the time. Most of us will have a good day. We do everything right and one thing wrong. And we spend our entire night saying, I can't believe I did that. And then the next day we do 100 things right and one thing wrong. We say, I can't believe I did that. Your brain can be your greatest asset or your greatest prison.
That's true. So learning how to be how do people can be easier on themselves?
Well, it's extremely difficult, but I liken it to quit smoke. And I'm old. So when I grew up, everybody smoked cigarettes. And nowadays, people want to quit. And the first thing they need to do is recognize when they start to bring the cigarette to their mouth. You're not all of a sudden going to quit. So first recognize it. And then eventually you want to try to stop doing it. So I want you to recognize when you start being mean to yourself. Okay? You give a speech at the company and it was flawless, but the last 30 seconds you screw up. And instead of saying, my God, I just rock and roll, you come home and you say, I just fucked this up completely, excuse my French. Okay? It's a totally different way of looking at it. So I want you, when you do that, I want you to say, interesting. I just was really mean to myself. I gave a great speech and one bad thing and I'm beating myself up. So I want you to recognize it. Eventually, I want you to start saying things differently to yourself. So let's say that you had a bad encounter with a friend, and you would go home and say, what a jerk I am. Can't believe I treated my friend that way. 2 years ago, it was even worse. And 3 years ago, it was worse. I guess I'm a really bad person. I want you to come back and say, I probably could have handled that differently, instead of saying how awful you are. Another example is someone who exaggerates things. So let's say, Amanda, you have a bad day. Let's say you're the kind of person who comes home and says, today was the worst day of my life. It was awful. How does that make you feel the rest of the night? I would rather you say, today was a little bit off. How does that make you feel? So we're trying to, bring everything down. So that's what we do. We teach people to realize when they're starting to be mean to themselves and then use different wording. And they can also catch themselves doing things right. Someone takes a test like me, and if they do badly, it ruins their life. And if they do good, they pat themselves in the back for 2 seconds. Actually, they don't pat themselves at all. So if we're only going to look at the things that go bad and destroy ourselves, and we're never, ever going to look at when we do good, it doesn't work.
And it makes a lot of sense about recognizing it and bringing it to the awareness, like if you're not aware of when it's happening or how it's happening, you can't change something.
Correct. And we're all that way. Most of our parents coming up in the generation they did, I'm a little older than you, they were negative. Most people are negative. Most people feel like they got the raw end of the stick. Everybody has more than them. Life, in their mind, life sucks. And they bring this on to their kids. The kids beat themselves up and people are unhappy. There's very few people who are really happy.
That is so true.
The next one, which I think is really important, is playing to our strengths. Everyone was born with certain things they're really good at and things they're not good at. So you have things that you're much better at than me, and I have things that I'm much better at than you. Usually the things that we're good at, we love to do. So I encourage people to take out a piece of paper and make 2 lists. I want you to list the 5 things that you think you're better at than most people on the left side. And on the right side, I want you to list the things you love to do the most. Anything that's on both of the left list and the right list, I want you to circle. That's the stuff you're meant to do in this plan. And if you're doing it, bravo. 9 out of 10 people aren't doing it. They took the first job out of high school or college because they didn't have anything else to do. They said that they'll leave there in, a year when they can find the right job, but 50 years later, and they're still in the job they don't like. Most people aren't doing the hobbies they love. Let's say somebody loves to sing, but they're not singing. I want to encourage you to sing. I want to encourage you to have a plan of how you can start singing. I want you to come up with the 3 things that you can do immediately to start singing. Maybe one is to join a choir. One is to join a local theater group. Or maybe one is to join a karaoke group. And then I want you to choose which one of those, and I want you to do something immediately. Because if you don't do immediately, you won't do it. I want the very next day for you to call one of those places and set up a first appointment. So if you're in a job you hate, start taking classes so you can get into a job you love and start doing something you love. Spend more time doing what you love. Life is short. The only thing we know for sure is we're all going to die. And you actually could die tomorrow. You don't know that. It's the cancer patients or the guy who just, had a heart attack and they thought he was going to die that make up their bucket list the next day and they do it. So it's a blessing many times to have a heart attack or cancer in the long run.
That's the only thing that we're all guaranteed is we're going to die one day.
You got it. The fifth one is living in the present. So let's say that you have a child and you're swinging him on the swing set. How much of the time are you actually focused on the swing set and the child? 47% of the time. 53% of the time, you're focused on the past or the future. So you're swinging him, but you're thinking, geez, I got to go to work tomorrow and I got to make that speech. And, how do I need to do that speech? Or you're still thinking about that fight you had with your sister-in-law years ago, and it's still coming up, and it's something that you haven't been able to leave in the past. And we encourage you with things in the past that you don't feel comfortable actually meeting with them. You're so angry, at least write a letter to them. And you can send it or you can burn it. Fear of the future is a big one, Amanda. That's when we have things that we're afraid of that aren't even going to happen. I saw an interview of a 103-year-old woman, and they said, what's your biggest regret in life? And she said, worrying about things that never happen. So, we are afraid that we're going to get cancer in the future, but we're only 40 years old. So what's the likelihood you're going to get cancer now? Probably 6%, but you're worried about it all the time because your brother got cancer. And if you did get cancer, what's the likelihood you're going to die? It's probably 10%, 6%. So what's the likelihood you're going to get cancer? 6%. And die? 6%. If you do the math, it's probably all the way down to 1%, but you're spending all this time worrying about it. Or you're so worried that you're going to screw up the speech the next day. But every time you do a speech, it's flawless and it's perfect, but you're still worried about it. So we spend way too much time worrying about things that never even happen. And they really rob us of our life. 47% of the time, we're living in the present.
Wow. Where does that statistic come from?
I guess I read a book.
No worries. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, professionals at college is a lot smarter than me have come up with 47%. It makes sense during the day. I mean, how much time are you actually spending focusing on what you're doing? Or how much time is your mind thinking about, oh my God, I'm really worried about that tomorrow or this afternoon? Why did my boyfriend say that thing to me? I'm really pissed off. What are you really focused on in the minute? And it's usually something other than what you're doing.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So the other thing I focus on is eliminating the things that stress you out. So let's say that you absolutely hate paying the checks every month. The first question is, can you actually avoid paying them? You have a wife or a husband and you agreed when you first got married that you'd pay the checks and they'd do the cleaning. Maybe you can ask them if they'd swap. And if they say, no way, Jose, I won't swap. We agreed on day one that you're doing the checks and I'm doing the cleaning. So you can't avoid it completely, but maybe you can do it differently. So if you're someone who's really anal and pays the checks every day they come in and you get 6 checks a month, so 6 days a month, you're paying checks and you're in a bad mood, maybe you can pay them once a month, pay them differently. And finally, if you hate going over the homework with your kids every night, maybe you can look at it differently and say, you know what, I really don't like doing this, but I get a chance to be with my kids every night. It's a wonderful thing. I'm mentoring them and I'm mentoring them for their future. So even though you don't like all these things, you can try not to do it, swap it for someone. You can do it differently, write the 1 checks once a month instead of 6 separately, or look at it differently.
I like those. Trying not to do it, doing it differently, or reframing how you look at it.
Perfect. Absolutely.
That concept seems so simple, but I think it's something that a lot of people don't think about or consider.
Yeah, people get very frustrated. They hate doing things, but they have to do it all the time. Someone hates cleaning the house, but they don't think they have the money to pay for a house cleaner. The house cleaner is $100 every 2 weeks or once a month. Well, why don't you go on one less date with your husband if you go every single week out on a date and you like the date, but you'd rather miss the date and get a housekeeper for sure? Why not do that? Think outside the box. Number 7, which is very important. In fact, if you don't do it, the whole program's kind of a waste. And that is spending more time with positive people and less time with negative people. So I want you to make a list of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I want you to rank each one 1 to 5. 1 is so negative that you could be having the greatest day, Amanda, and they pull you down. They make you feel miserable. 5, you could be having the worst day and they lift you up. And then I want you to put a number next to each of those. 1 to 5. Each of your friends. Rank them 1 to 5. 1, they're brutal. 5, they're great. And then I want you to add up those numbers and divide by 5. So now you have your average number in terms of positivity. And if your average number is a 1 or a 2, you need to make some changes with your friends. If it's a 4 or 5, you're doing great. And you say, well, how can I make a change with a friend that I've been friends with forever? You let them know that you feel like you've been very negative lately, so you've decided to take a course, and you need them to take a course too, because you have kids and you learned in the course that your kids will be like you, and I really don't want them to be like me. So you're negative, I'm negative, I'm taking the course, I need you to take a course too. And if they don't, you say to them again, I need you to take the course. And if they still don't, you start spending less time with them and more time with friends that lift you up.
That makes a lot of sense. I don't know who quoted this, but they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
That was my next step. Yeah.
Even outside of happiness and positivity, like if they're not doing things to better their lives, you're less likely to as well, you know?
Absolutely.
What were you going to say on that? The 5 people.
I was going to say the exact same thing. You're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with in terms of your positive. So you owe it to yourself. With family, you can't really say to your sister, look, we talk a lot. You're really, really negative. If you don't take a course, I'm going to stop talking. But you can certainly talk to her twice a week instead of 3 times a week. If it's your mother, you have a real problem. If your mother's really, really, really negative, you're going to stop talking to her. She's going to get upset.
You just got to convince her to take the course with you.
Yeah, good luck. Can't tell your mother what to do.
It's not telling her, it's suggesting.
Well, I can't teach an old dog new tricks, trust me. My mother's 86, my dad's 90.
It's hard.
Well, you try. If I told my mother that she needs to take a positivity course, she would go ballistic. And she's very negative.
Not that she needs to, just that you suggest that she takes this.
She would be so offended. I don't know. What about your mother?
Probably, but that's also why I'm saying that you don't say need, you would suggest it. I suggest we take this course together.
Well, maybe that's would work. I don't know. My mother's too old for her to accept that. Your mother's a lot younger than my mother.
She is, but still.
The next thing, which is important, I say the most important thing is learning to be easier on yourself. But studies in college, what most people will say, it's having close relationships with family and friends. Those are the things that are going to be the most important to making you happy. Certainly family is important because it's nice to get along with your family, your brother, sister, and your parents. And I encourage people who say, I don't speak to my parents because if something happened 20 years ago, to realize they're going to die. And it's silly to hold a grudge like that. Friends are great. They can make life so much sweeter. I had a 60th birthday. I had 18 people come, all my friends. It was wonderful. And also, they're there for you when something bad happens. My father's had cancer. He's 90. I don't know how much longer he'll be here. And I know that when he passes, I'll have the support, certainly of my wife and my son, but I'll also have friends to help me through it. So that's really important. I watched a show once with a Vietnam vet, and they said, what was the hardest thing in captivity? And he said it wasn't the lack of food and it wasn't the beatings. He said it was the inability to communicate with another human being for all those years. So we are creatures on this planet that need the human touch of other people.
That's true.
The other thing is we need to realize how much we can affect people. There was a story, Amanda, about a teenager who tried to kill himself. And he didn't kill himself, but he fell off the bridge and broke most of his bones in his body. And they said, why did you do it? And he said, well, I really wanted to kill myself, but I felt bad about how it would affect my family. So I decided to go on a bus one day. And if the bus driver was nice to me, I wouldn't kill myself. And if he was mean, I would. And I said, well, what happened? And he said, well, I decided to get to the end of the bus, at the front of the bus, and just stand there for a little while and see what the bus driver would say. And the bus driver said, kid, get off the damn bus. And that's why I tried to kill myself. So we can affect people in a very, very significant way when we don't realize the way we speak to them.
Wow. I got chills hearing that.
Yeah. We need to be careful how we say things to people.
We never know what anybody's dealing with internally.
Exactly. And that brings me to my next step, which is being friendly. And that's like a secret in your tool. Let's say you're having a bad week. If you just go to the market and you start being friendly to people, it makes you feel better. But it has a ripple effect because now you're nice to one person and he's nice to another person. And eventually he gets home and it's the first night of the week he's not fighting with his wife. And now the kids get to have a more relaxing evening. We need to realize that everybody is symbolically carrying a heavy load on their back. One person may have just found out his kid has cancer. One person may have just found out that they lost their job and they don't know how they're going to pay their bills. So everybody has a sack. And I want you to be like a lamplighter, just lights people. And some people say, I'm an introvert, I couldn't do that. And we say what you should do is you should pretend you're your favorite comedian. Who's your favorite comedian, Amanda?
I like Steve Harvey.
So let's say that you say, Todd, I could never go to the market and just say to people, my God, how you doing today? Boy, I love your fingernails. They look so good. Where did you get your nails done? And you say to me, Todd, I could never do that. Well, I'd say, Amanda, could Steve Harvey do it? And you'd say, of course, Steve Harvey could do it. He could do anything. Then I want you to pretend you're Steve Harvey for a day. So that's being friendly. The next one is giving, being a giver. Givers are actually 40% healthier and 25% happier than people who don't give. And it doesn't have to be money. It can be just your time, making a difference in other people's worlds, going to the market, putting groceries in an old lady's car, doing whatever you can to help people in the world. Tremendous effect on your body and your happiness. The next one is seeing in life that there's more to you than just yourself. We talk about finding a higher power. It doesn't have to be religion, but just realizing that we're all in this together and that there's something out there if you're going through a difficult time. And the last one, which I think is a really important one, is being grateful. So many of us feel like, we got the wrong end of the stick, but you are really envious of the guy next door who has a brand new Mercedes, but you didn't realize that him and his wife have been trying to have a baby for 4 years and nothing's working. And he would buy you 5 Mercedes if you could just have one child. So we think other people have everything and we have nothing. And we need to realize that you can always look to the left and find people who have more than you, or you can look to the right and find people who have less than you. And what do you think makes you happier if you look to the right and realize how much you have? So that's the 12-week process. None of them are easy. They're all changing the way that you view things. But if you're able to make changes, even 6 out of the 12 or 7 of the 12, it's going to make you a much happier person.
You mentioned at one point, like week, whatever. So are these done in a week by week basis? So for
Yeah.
like 12 weeks?
Very important. You don't screw them up. You do the right one first and then second and third. And if you want to be part of my course, you go to my website and you take the course. It's a course that includes my book, which is usually $25, my workbook, which is usually $15, and all my videos as well. And it's all for just $27.
And now is this a course they can take like at home virtually?
Yeah, it's all on video. It's through Udemy. I don't know if you've heard of it, but Udemy's a college online with thousands of courses.
That's nice and convenient.
It's basically the exact same thing you and I just went through, but it's more in depth. So you and I went over the first one, which is physical, working out. And I probably did it with you in 30 seconds. This one would be 4 minutes. Each one of the 5 steps would be about 4 minutes, whereas I blew through these a lot faster. Plus, you get the book that I told you, which just won awards. And you have the work.
And now is the workbook a workbook off of your book?
The workbook is separate from it, but it really is a separate book. If somebody wants the real book, which I think is great, and they want to actually have it in their hands, they can go to Amazon and get it.
Now, transitioning a tad bit, I ask most guests this, and I'm very curious what you would say yours is. But most people have had what they consider an aha moment or multiple aha moments where something in their life shifted and they look at the world differently. What would you say has been your biggest aha moment?
Well, it was definitely the breakdown. It doesn't sound like an aha moment. It sounds like an ooh moment. It shifted my whole life. Being a guy that was a perfectionist, that was always running on empty, wasn't as focused on the family as much as he should have been, and then having the terrible breakdown and changing everything. So that was my aha moment.
So how would you say overall you looked at the world differently from before that to after that?
Before that, I was all ego. My whole life was ego, and I was tremendously successful. In fact, I'd say I was probably as successful as anyone at age 40. I built $100 million business. I grew it 20% every year. My people, I think, loved me. I loved them. I taught them how to be better people, how to be better husbands, sons and daughters. All ego, jumping off tables, acting like Tony Robbins. After that, there's no ego. It's just love.
So you're not jumping off tables anymore?
No, I don't need to do that. I mean, I still go to the gym and get fired up. That's, no, I'm completely different. I would tell people how great I was. I was a Superman and I could do anything in the old days. I certainly don't do that now.
So do you not think you could do anything?
Well, I think I can be successful, but I don't think I'm, better than other people in terms of being successful. My definition of happiness is just learning to love yourself because of who you are, just the fact that you're here. You don't have to succeed. Most people feel like they have to succeed to be okay with themselves. Most people run away from feelings. That's why they work all the time. They don't have to just sit 5 or 10 minutes by themselves and say, what could I improve on?
Now you say you don't have to succeed. Why do you say that?
Maybe because I had so much success before, but at this point in my life, I'm not doing that much. I don't feel like I have to succeed. I don't feel like I have to do anything. I'm just good with myself. Now, you said, what do I kind of consider myself? I kind of consider myself someone who's hanging out and just waiting for people to come to them and need them. Like my greatest satisfaction now is when people are broken and all my friends and family know that they should come to me, and I get them to my favorite psychopharmacologist and he saves them within 3 weeks with the right pills. So they're broken, they want to kill themselves, and because they came to me, we saved them. That makes me feel great.
That's beautiful, Todd.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed speaking with you.
I had a great time too. I hope
Now,
it helps some of the listeners.
I'm sure it will. I'm curious, have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
Yes. A lot
So
of people tell me he's amazing.
he's got a podcast called On Purpose, and he ends it with 2 segments. And I've borrowed those 2 segments, and I end my podcast with those 2. The first segment is the many sides to us, and there's 5 questions, and they need to be answered in 1 word each. What is 1 word someone who is meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Caring.
What is 1 word someone who knows you well would use to describe you as?
Loyal.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Really loving.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
Difficult.
What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
Loving.
Second segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
Just be yourself.
Why is that the best?
I think so many people are trying to be other people. They're chasing, I want to be like him. I want to be like her. I just want you to be okay with who you are. Just be yourself. As you and I talked about, we all have different things that we're best at and things that we love to do the most. That's what you should be doing. Just be you.
I agree with that. What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
I think it probably has to do with cheating and stealing. People who feel like it's okay to cheat somebody if you get enough money from it and being dishonest. So I don't know that someone actually said be dishonest, but if you said, what do I feel is one of the biggest problems in the world is dishonesty.
What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
I guess it would be ego. I was all ego, Amanda. All ego. I was so successful. And it just doesn't matter to me anymore at all.
Was it the breakdown that was the biggest thing that got rid of your ego?
Yeah.
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
Todd was a really loving and caring person.
If you could create 1 law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I want to know why.
It would be learning to love yourself just because you're here. And it's because people don't love themselves just because they were born. Tony Robbins has a fun thing he says. He says, you won. You already won. You are the 1/1,000,000th sperm that made it to the egg. You won. So why aren't you enjoying your life? You already won. But most of us don't enjoy our life. Most people are unhappy. My wife's from Venezuela. It's a different culture. She's the happiest person I know. Lots of family. Here, just everybody's striving to be better. Nobody's satisfied with where they are. They're all wishes they were, somebody else. The worst thing in the world is the telephone now and looking at social media. People are so unhappy now. Girls aged 10 to 17, it's the highest rate of suicide right now in America. They look and see all girls who are prettier than them, more than them, and they want to kill themselves because they haven't built up their self-esteem yet. People, as they talk to you about being grateful, they're not grateful for what they have. We have more, even if you don't have money in this country. Now, I'm not saying if you're destitute, but let's say you're lower middle class. So you don't have the beautiful car, you don't have the beautiful house. You're still richer than everyone who came before you. going all the way back to Roman times. Millions and millions and billions of people. We have more. We have electricity. We have in-house plumbing. You realize how lucky we are not to have to go outside to go to the bathroom? That's only been the last 120 years. So we have so much, but we don't appreciate it. We have a library that has all of the information that you could possibly have, but because it's free, nobody goes. Nobody appreciates anything. So I just want you to just don't feel like you always have to achieve. Don't feel like you're never good enough. Just be, you're a good person. We're all good people. Just be happy with who you are.
I agree. I love that Tony Robbins quote about you being, yeah, it made me chuckle, but you already won at something if you want to look at it like that. We're all trying to win something.
If you like Jay Shetty, you should check out Tony Robbins. Just get one of his, audios and listen to it.
I've heard a little bit by him. But I love that quote.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of sperm that didn't survive, So it's something to be like, if you're striving for that winning, like you won that race.
There was a million sperm in that orgasm. So the one person, one sperm that made it to the egg.
I like that different type of perspective.
Great.
Thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate this.
Let me just tell people my website, if I could, because if they go there, they can take the course. So it's toddpatkin.com, TODDPATK.com, toddpatkin.com. There's so many things in the website that you can check out, but if you do want to take the course, it's only $27 and you get everything. If you just want to buy my book and, have it, if you like to read and actually have it in your hand, then you can go to Amazon and it's $25.99.
Awesome. I will link both of those in the show notes for
Thanks.
people to click directly. I do just like to give it back to the guest. Any final words of wisdom? Anything else you want to share with the listeners? No pressure.
If you're feeling down, exercise is the quickest way you can go to feeling better. So if you're a couch potato, just walk around the block. Don't do too much in terms of exercise that you'll do it once. You'll try to lift too much and you'll never do it again because you hurt your muscles. That's the number one thing you can do. Next, please be kinder to yourself. Your brain and you can be your own worst enemy. Somehow you need to snap out of that. And I want you just to love yourself just because you're here. You don't always have to be achieving. You don't always have to be the perfect mother, the perfect father. You don't always have to win all the awards.
I completely agree, Todd. Well, thank you so much again.
Thanks, Amanda. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Manders Mindset. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.